Another round, around, I'ma shoot it.
Pippen for three. Yes, sir. Scottie Pippen Jr.
I'ma take my shackles, I'ma get the job done. Get the job done.
All right, he is here. Yeah, we're gonna get to all of that we just saw in the video. What's up?
Okay, I gotta ask, Scotty.
Good morning.
I see it's Scotty with a Y. Your dad's Scotty with an IE. There's all these stories about how he just never corrected somebody. I need the real story. I need the facts on the spelling of Scotty.
I started reading the interviews, Chandler.
I like this.
I
Y versus IE.
It's confusing, to be honest. It doesn't really make sense, but my dad's with a Y when he was born.
Right.
And then I guess he just started signing signatures with an IE because it was easy to write it that way.
What?
And then for some reason, I just became with a Y. I don't know. I feel like I should have been with an IE too, just to make it simpler.
Right.
But
I am
blown away by
younger,
it's just crazy.
when I was younger, I probably should have went with like an IE just to switch it. It was the same, but.
So
yeah,
at some point in the
cool.
program, they just switched Scotty with a Y to an IE because of his autographs?
But also,
Yeah.
IE is more to write than a Y.
It's longer and
fascinates me,
harder.
Scotty. This story has fascinated me for a while now, and then you've got the Y. Nothing makes sense in life. See? But don't you feel better?
Yeah,
you
I got a little,
he didn't believe
a little
me.
closure.
Okay, a little bit of closure. All right, let's talk. All right, Grizzlies lost the series. We can do all that, blah, blah, blah. But we really want to talk about what you did, because I do believe you opened up a lot of eyes in this series. The second player in Grizzlies history to post at least 25, 5, and 5 with 5 made threes in a playoff game. How do you feel, your performance in this series, how do you feel about it?
I thought it was good and bad. You know, obviously it's hard to say. I played amazing when we still lost and, you know, got swept, so that was unfortunate. But I thought it was a lot of good for me to look forward to, especially going into the summer and just, you know, coming back from my 4th year.
I mean, I get that too, right? Like you don't want to be too overjoyous about your own solo performance, but you were such a standout part of this entire series. Confidence-wise, what does that do for you going into the offseason and into next year?
Yeah, I think my confidence right now is pretty high. You know, I know this is pretty much my first offseason since my last 2 seasons. I've had to play summer league and do stuff like that. I feel like this next offseason I'll be able to really get the work in, even though it's longer than I wanted it to be, but just knowing what I'll need to focus on and what I need to bring back to next year.
Yeah, Scotty, you won't be playing Summer League this year. I'll go ahead and tell you that now. I think you solidified that you are a starting level point guard in this league. And obviously, other than your individual performance, how much you balled out in this series, is there anything positive you can take away from that first round sweep? Is it the experience, just to be there again next year, to be more comfortable? What did you learn just from that series?
Experience. I don't think it can be taught. You know, I feel like it's just one of those things you just have to go through. And especially with my team, we're super young. You know, we play a bunch of rookies as well. So just being able to go through that. Some guys never been to the playoffs, especially me. I just feel like being in the atmosphere, seeing how the game is played, the physicality, I feel like that was huge for me. And it was just a great experience for me.
Yeah, Scotty, because Josh said, you know, after game 2 that he felt like he had OKC figured out, and then game 3 he goes down with that hip injury. You're rolling. Before that injury, you guys were playing well. If he doesn't go down with that injury, how did you feel about y'all chances moving forward before that injury? I'm sorry.
I think we all felt pretty well. You know, we were winning at home. Obviously, in the playoffs, I feel like home court advantage is one of the biggest things. In OKC, obviously, we had a 50-point loss that was crazy, but second game we came and got better. The third game, we were up. Jaw goes down, and then even the 4th game, we still competed. So it could go either way, I feel like, if he doesn't go out.
Yeah, and being a young guy in the league, Ja's also a young guy, but what have you been able to learn playing next to him in these couple of seasons that you've been able to be his teammate? What's some of the intangibles that you've picked up from Ja behind the scenes?
Just watching him, I feel like he's one of the most talented guards in the league, seeing how he plays in a pick and roll, seeing what I could take away from his game. Obviously, I'm not as athletic as him, but I still try to see what he does on the court, how he moves on the court. I feel like his passing is one of his most underrated abilities, so just trying to take stuff from that.
We've obviously heard about the dunk contest, and we want him in there. Is there something that you've seen him do in practice where you're like, "Ja, buddy, you got to do the dunk contest"? Like, is there something that you've seen that the world has not, because the dude has bounce?
He has crazy bounce. He said he might do it next year, so I don't want to spoil anything
Stop.
he's done. So I feel like we should just build some hype around that.
Oh, he's
so
got to.
maybe we'll see it just on the next year.
We'll start that
Great.
campaign.
It's, what is it, almost May? We're going to
Yeah.
start already.
We need it. I'm already
talking
dreading
about it now.
All-Star Weekend.
I'm doing it right now.
That is not the right attitude. Scotty, obviously the coaching situation was a little bit shocking. Luckily, the Nuggets came along and took away some of that weirdness for you guys, but you guys fired Taylor Jenkins. You've got a new coach for the final 9-10 days of the season. Has there been any word? Is he expected to be the permanent coach when we start things off next season?
I've been told it's still up in the air, so I'm not sure. I don't want to speak too much about it, but, you know, if he's a guy, I definitely liked him a lot. He was great for me. He took over the job kind of in a hard spot, but when he got the job, I feel like my confidence went through the roof. My minutes started going up. You know, I feel like I was more consistent with him taking the job. So, you know, hopefully he's the guy, but I haven't been told clearly if they made a decision yet.
How weird is it in the building when you guys are sort of, I don't know how much you knew about the Taylor Jenkins firing. Did you have a heads up? Did you guys find out sort of seconds before the rest of us did? Was that shocking for you?
It was super shocking. We kind of found out just how everyone else did. I woke up in the morning and, you know, people were texting my phone and stuff. I thought I got traded even though the trade deadline was done. But yeah, I just saw the news on social media, and then shortly after we got a text from the team and stuff like that. So it kind of all happened pretty quickly because we played the next day. So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, now like what's next?
Yeah. And a lot of people were extremely critical of Triple J, and I think he even said he has to play better. How important to this team is his overall success, moving forward and, this season?
Super important. Triple J is like the engine of our team. I feel like this series was great for him just because he learned a lot. He learned how to be a focal point in the offense. I feel like in the past couple of years, we kind of relied on Josh so much that when, Jaren now had so much of a load and so much of, he was a higher on the scouting report this year. So teams were doubling him every time he touched the ball. Just something he knows now that he has to be ready for, something he has to be prepared for. So not only was the experience good for the young guys, I feel like him as well and, guys going forward.
So put your GM hat on for me right now. Do you keep this core together? What do you think we need to add? Obviously, the West is stacked. We saw 3-8 came down to the last game, which I don't think has ever happened. It was insane. What do the Grizzlies need to do? Do you guys have enough now? Obviously, you did well in the draft with Edey and Wells. But what really do you need to kind of put you in that contending conversation next season?
I'm not sure exactly what we need. That's why I'm not the GM. But I would say we're still a young team. We battled a lot of injuries here. We lost, 2 guys that were focal parts of our roster. Jalen Wells, started for us that was able to guard and stuff like that. So when he had a season-ending injury, it was kind of hard for us. And then Brandon Clark as well, another season-ending injury. If those guys don't get hurt, if Jai doesn't get hurt, all kind of what ifs. But I don't know. I like our team. I like our core. Even though we're still young, I feel like we're still learning and we're still getting better, throughout the year.
Scotty, back in November, you and your dad became the first father-son duo since '82 to record triple doubles. How cool was that to share that history with your pops?
Yeah, that was crazy. I didn't really even realize that until after the game. I feel like it was it's a real feeling. It's my dad being in the building and just having that go down just because I never thought I'd even be in the NBA, let alone just making history with my dad and stuff like that. So I just thought it was crazy.
It's awesome.
That is
that's amazing.
It's pretty awesome.
That's fire.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, because, we spent a lot of this season with LeBron and Bronny. We just went through an NFL draft with Dion and Shedeur, like this whole father-son situation. You obviously have a very famous Hall of Famer dad. So coming up and sort of growing up, was that difficult? Like, how were you able to sort of find your own lane and stick to that?
Yeah, I think it's difficult just because people just put, a perspective on you on how they think you move and how they think you act just because of your dad. I feel like we're sitting there with Deion Sanders and his son, and then, LeBron and Bronny. For me, I feel like it was tough just because I feel like I wasn't given fair treatment. People kind of just overlooked me because my dad, I feel like the name might have hurt me more than it helped me sometimes. And it's unfair for us, but at the end of the day, I feel like we're all the 3, kids you named are doing well. So,
did you ever do you feel like you've put pressure on yourself? Were you able to sort of not do that?
I think it's hard. I feel like, you know, everyone puts these expectations on you just because you're so-and-so's son. So I don't think it's unwarranted, but I feel like you just kind of get used to it.
So Pops has given us some really interesting hot takes, some real zingers about MJ and LeBron, especially this year. Do you ever text him and just like, or debate with him about some of the stuff that, you know, he's been saying lately?
My goodness.
Nah, to be honest, I kind of just let him have it because most of those debates are out of my hands. You know, I just let him have it. Just because I wasn't really around and I never really seen, you know, my Pops play. I never really seen, you know, that era play. So for me, I really have no say-so in those arguments. So when he's saying stuff, I kind of just see it on social media. And, you know, people usually send it to me, so I just laugh.
But there hasn't been one at, like, the Thanksgiving table where you're like, Dad, stop. Like, or there hasn't been one that stood out more than the others?
Maybe in my head, I never said it out loud, though. Nah,
hey, that's still Pops, Chandler.
That's
still
true.
Pops.
Yeah.
All right, so this next question then probably means more to you than the most, but who's the GOAT then, Scotty? Is it LeBron? Is it MJ? Is it someone else? You've been close to it.
Oh, my.
That's tough for me. Like I said, I've never seen, like, you know, that era play. So for me to say MJ, I growing up, I always said MJ. So, like, for me to say MJ, I just kind of just on nostalgia. I've never really seen him play, so I feel like I'm not giving fair judgment to the conversation. And then for LeBron, I just someone I play with. So, like, I've seen him. I've grown up watching him. But also, I was a Kobe fan. I loved Kobe growing up. So I would say all three of those my goals: Kobe, LeBron, and MJ.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
That was like
I can't get one.
That's more thought out than most people.
But that's fair, bro. Because that's how I feel about like Magic Johnson and all these guys. Like, you know, they're great. You've heard all of the stories, but it just wasn't your era. You're not familiar. You're not as familiar with it. So I feel you.
Yeah. And I feel like this for my dad is like, it's hard to even ask him because, like, how you gonna compare someone you play with, you know?
Yeah. There's everyone's bias.
There's
so
bias
many
there.
levels.
There's some bias there.
There's always bias. Yeah, there's always bias.
That was a thought out answer. Most people don't even think about it. They're just like, I'm one of them. But talk to me about the off season, the summer. What do you got going on? You got some camps that we need to know about?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I want to get back, so I want to start having the camps. Thinking about Nashville, thinking about Memphis. So stay tuned for those dates. Still not sure. Sometime during the summer. And then, you know, long off season. So going to try to get ready for the season, get my body right. And, you know, a lot to look forward to.
I love it.
Awesome.
I love this. Thank you for the YIE situation. We now can we have heard it from you, and that's all we needed. Enjoy the off season and good luck. We'll see you next year.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Congrats on a great year, bro.
Yeah, great year.
Appreciate y'all.
We'll take a quick break. More Run It Back on the other side.
Run it back, run it up.